Hi, good morning, everyone. Just waiting.
Hi,
Hi, Sanika. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah. Am I and can you see me
Yes,
properly?
yes. Perfect, perfect. Everything's good.
Perfect.
Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to today's conversation on suicide prevention and awareness in sport. Today's discussion is going to be a little sensitive because it is a very sensitive topic, but yet a very crucial topic for all of us to understand, especially in the sporting community. And this is why we have Dr. Sanika here today to deep dive us a lot into the facts and into the crux of suicide prevention when it comes to sport. So I would really like to introduce you to our audience today. So, Dr. Sanika is a sport and performance psychologist. She is currently heading the sports psychological vertical at AMP Empower. She is also certified in applied suicide intervention skills training from Public Health Scotland, and she has also been a former national level table tennis player. So I would really like to welcome you on board today with us, Anika, and we are really excited for your inputs for today's session.
Thanks, Sarah. I think, like you correctly said, it's a very, very important topic which doesn't get talked about quite a lot. And I'm happy to sort of deep dive into it today and hope to sort of create that level of awareness that we need for topics like this, especially in elite competitive sport where it's very much a stigmatized issue, so to speak.
Absolutely. So, yes, let's start first by addressing how significant this issue of suicide is within the Indian sports. Like when I myself am using the word suicide, there's so much of stigma at the back of my head already. So I would really like to understand from your expertise as to, how would you define the word suicide and more as to how big is this particular issue in the Indian sport context?
Right. I think that's a good start. So, firstly, to understand suicide, it's firstly very, very important for all of those who are listening again to just reiterate that again, it's going to be quite a sensitive conversation. So, in case you feel sort of overwhelmed or triggered, just ensure that you step away and take care of yourselves. So, basically, to understand suicide as a definition, it is an act where you're intentionally causing your own death, right? That is what suicide is. Of course, there are a lot of terminologies that maybe I can expand on as we go on, but that's basically what suicide is. In terms of Indian sport, one of the biggest challenges is where we don't have the exact numbers and the exact data
Hmm.
in terms of percentages or geographical data or gender specific data points. But so to speak, India at large is one of those countries who struggles globally quite a lot with suicide just generally. So if you just generally look at the numbers, we say that we typically lose one Indian to suicide every 3 minutes, right?
Yes, that's
And
massive. Yeah.
40 in a day. And again, a lot of times what happens is this: there is also that a lot of suicides may go unreported, which is also then sort of skews us in not having the most accurate numbers. So that's the expanse of the issue. Also, India is one of those countries globally which does not have a suicide prevention plan in place. So globally, if you look
Hmm.
at it, I think about only 38 countries have an intervention crisis plan, and India still doesn't have one. I think in the Mental Health Care Act 2017 was the first time when in India the act of suicide was decriminalized. So there are some
Correct.
steps that are being taken, but you can see the expanse of the issue and the kind of support systems that we have in place. We really need to sort of really pay attention to this. And just one of the other bits that I want to highlight here, which can give us the understanding of how extensive it is. In one of the United Nations SDGs, one of the goals is to prevent suicide because they say that it is one of the most preventable forms of death.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's how globally it is talked about. There
Right.
are sort of reports which the International Olympic Committee has also put out, which then specifically talks about the expanse of it in just elite sport, because there have been certain elite athletes which have come out and spoken about their struggles with mental health and the sort of ideation stage that they had reached to, and that is when sort of it gets me closer to also highlight that there are different terminologies which then become sort of important, right? Which then help us, which will actually help us alleviate the stigma that is attached. Like you correctly said, this once you hear the word, there's a little bit of something that happens in the back of our mind, right?
Yes.
So suicide is different than ideation. It is different than an attempt. It is different. Suicidal behavior is different. A para-suicide is different. So it is very important for all of us collectively to really sort of spend some time understanding the differences, and I think that will help us understand the kind of extensive percolation that it has had in Indian sport.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you stating that one in every three is a massive number, right? But you spoke about suicide ideation different from, suicide behavior. If you can just highlight a little bit on that topic as to what does suicidal ideation mean compared
Hmm.
to the behavior, that would be good.
Right. So, suicidal ideation is anything when an individual is referring, constantly considering, and ideating about how they would like to sort of end their own life. It is where they're actively planning. At times, they may also sort of have certain external means that they have on themselves, which is how they have ideated to end their own life.
Yeah.
That is your ideation. Suicidal behavior is where, again, sometimes you're constantly in the preparation mode, and that's like a long term behavioral outcome or responses that you have. Ideation is when you're actively thinking about it, and I think there's also a number where it takes about, on an average globally, the data tells us that it takes about 20 attempts
Okay.
to complete a suicide, or that's the kind of correlation that they've been able to find out. And at any given point, 100 individuals are actively ideating a suicide, right? So that's where it's different, and that's how extensive, again, the pervasiveness of the issue is.
Absolutely. Wow. Like 20 and 100, these numbers are apt. Like it's really something that I myself weren't aware about, and I'm so glad you brought that up. Uh, Also, as a former athlete, and you also as a former athlete, and a lot of our viewers watching this right now, and even if you all are watching the recorded version of this, I and we all are aware of what demands sports brings onto us in our sporting life and also in our social life, right? Whether we talk about setbacks, injuries, we talk about pressure to perform or consistently perform, right? So there are a lot of demands that sport brings on to us. So if you could just try and talk a little bit about certain warning signs that athletes are most vulnerable to, so that we as a sporting community, as a support system, and athletes are also aware that, okay, like if this is what I do, this is a risky thing, so I need to be prepared for it for me to face a mentally or physically demanding challenge. So if you could just talk a little
Yeah.
bit, yeah.
I think, again, having played sport at the national level myself, and I think you also have a very similar
Yes.
experience. We would all know and appreciate that entering into the competitive environment about twice or thrice every month, being exposed to the kind of scrutiny, being exposed to high pressure environments where the stakes of winning just the whole understanding of winning versus failure is so high, that itself puts a lot of pressure on athletes. The pressure of expectations from self, from coaches, from the selectors, from funders. So many different stakeholders have now come together to support an athlete's sort of journey. So that is one. The other is the high level of scrutiny, like I said.
Hmm.
Especially when you're an elite athlete, all performances make or break your eventual selection towards your say international dream or the national level dream, that you might have. An added source of pressure right now is also social media, where athletes, where they choose to sort of put their sporting life as well as the personal life on display, and they're open to sharing stuff. They are highly scrutinized. They sort of expose themselves to all sort of criticism, trolls and negative comments, and harsh comments made about them,
Yes.
and the sort of people jumping onto quick conclusions about their performances, which is also, if you really look at it, those are micro stressors, but if they are exposed to them on a regular basis, on a much more higher periodic level, which is what makes them a very vulnerable population. And the antithesis of that is, as a community of sport loving, as a nation, we sort of put our athletes very high up on a pedestal very quickly, right? And rightfully so. They're sort of bringing laurels to our nation. They're getting our country's name out, and they're making all of us very proud when they are sort of participating and winning at the international level. But the perception that we have of them is that, oh, they are a hero, oh, they are a champion.
Hmm.
And then when they want to talk about mental health or sensitive topics, that doesn't match really with the stereotype that the legend status that is attached to them. So I believe even that contributes to the whole bubble of thinking that, listen, every step of my performance is looked at. Somebody's keeping a watch on it. Somebody's monitoring me all the time. That's one. Another aspect is also the constant exposure to injury. So when you play competitive sport,
Hmm.
you're in training where your training load is very high, or is you're sort of preparing for an international level tournament or a national camp. There's always a little bit of a worry that, listen, I don't want to be injured, right? If I get injured, then I'm going to have to sit out of a tournament, then my selection's going to get impacted, and the eventualities are just sort of grave, right? So that also acts as a contributing factor. And of course, an athlete is an athlete when they are playing their sport. They have many other roles that they play in their lives. They are a student, they're an active family member, they're a friend, they've got social relationships, and things that happen in other areas of life can also bleed into sport. If they have sort of certain genetic predispositions to mental illnesses, maybe that can also be one of the reasons why they end up eventually developing a mental illness condition or have certain struggles. And all of these things together can be certain signs. In
Hmm.
terms of mental health signs, you could see that if an athlete's mood is quite the one that takes a hit quite often, their social interaction takes a hit, or they are not able to keep up with the training load because of their motivation, emotions, and things like that. Maybe those could be some warning signs. If you see that they have been able to do training at the same persistent level, but suddenly you're seeing a drop, suddenly you're seeing certain behavioral changes in them, where they were initially very chatty, but now they sort of want to be isolated or taking active steps to step out of the social circle. Maybe those could be some of those warning signs that collectively everybody in their circle can be very mindful of, to be able to spot it quite early.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, all of these signs are definitely observable. I guess we all say mental health is invisible, but honestly, I believe you,
It's
yes,
really not. Like, it
it's
can
not.
be in a good state of mind, or when they're in the healthiest, or sort of, even when, I mean, I don't only want to talk about mental health when it's good, when they're happy, but as athletes, they're constantly exposed to pressure, like we spoke about. And a good sign of mental health would be to be able to manage that pressure positively,
Absolutely.
qualitatively, use that pressure to perform well. Even that can contribute, or that could be one of the signs that they're really doing well. It's not only when they when there's low mood, or when there are certain challenges that we can say, oh, now their mental health is down the drain, or things
Hmm.
like that.
Yes, actually, very correctly defined. You very perfectly defined what mental health is rather than just being happy all the time or just being in a good mood all the time. It's more about how you cope with a stressor. And I think this is very important for all of us to also understand that so that we can be there to recognize these signs and symptoms, right? The least we can do is recognize if a person is not talking to us the same way he or she used to talk to us.
Absolutely.
So,
And I think I just want to add this one bit. So far, when I'm now, it's been about more than 6 years that I work as a sports side. I generally think that athletes are a very highly critical population. I often tell them in my sessions as well that, you always come up to me and say, I won, but this didn't work out, or
yeah.
I played well, but this didn't go my way. And that but becomes one of my biggest sort of challenges to sort of get through, or sort of help them process around, right? So that level of self criticism can also be one of those signs where they're highly critical. They are always chasing this perfectionistic standard, that they have in their minds for their performance or for their training outcomes and things like that, which also makes them vulnerable. Because I've seen so many athletes, and I've heard and have read up about so many international athletes, where their self-esteem, their self-worth sort of
Hmm.
gets tied into, when I win a gold medal, I'm worthy enough. But when I'm not winning a medal, when I'm not a part of the podium stands, I am not good enough at all. Right? So that self-esteem, the self-worth getting just tied up in terms of success and failure is also one of those bits which then sort of makes them generally a very highly vulnerable population to mental health struggles just generally.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, talking about criticism, talking about wins and losses, and the whole point that even if an athlete has reached the higher stake, there's always a certain perfectionism trait that is inbuilt, not inbuilt, but very much trained through their sport, which I feel also affects their normal life,
Yeah.
also affects their social life. And I think managing their social life and their sport is another whole challenge that as support system we also need to understand, right?
Percent. And I think that perfectionism can be used facilitatively if you're able to sort of keep that trait or keep that quality in moderation. Because I believe that is also what gives the athletes the kind of edge over the rest of the population, which is the non-athletic population. Right. So I think as sports psychologists, it's very, very important to understand, to be able to spot these signs, because with the perfectionistic tendency comes the fear of failure, the fear of expectations, and the sort of low self-esteem, because every time you lose, you're taking a dig at your self-worth and your self-image. So I believe that, it's very important to sort of help them moderate their standards, the high standards that they have in their own mind for their performance and outcomes.
Yes, absolutely. And talking about standards, we say that sport is 90% loss and 10% win, because at the end of the tournament or at the end of the league, there happens to be just one person at the top of the table or at the top of the chart, or just one person winning the gold, right? The rest are constantly just competing. So I would really like you to talk a little bit more as to the failure aspect of it leading to anxiety, stress, and moreover as to how can we build resilience.
Right.
Because at the end of it, talking about the warning signs, symptoms, and certain factors that can cause a mental health challenge and athletes being more vulnerable into it, we would like to understand from you as to from the athlete's point of view, how can an athlete work on his or her resilience? And as an support system outside, how can we enforce that? How can we help an athlete get there?
I think those are really, really nice points made by you. I think the first thing to address quite quickly here is that, of course, when you play sport, your win to loss ratio is always most probably going to lean towards the losses than
Yes.
right. And I was in a national training camp once, where the coach rightly said that as elite athletes, the fact that you're now going to play, say, at the World Cup, you are going to have more losses than you're going to have wins in your career from now onwards, right? So firstly accepting that that's the nature, that's the inherent nature of sport, and no other area of your life is going to expose you to failure so much other than sport. So that's at the outset. The second bit to understand here from a country perspective is that for the next 10-12 years, India generally wants to make strides towards sort of increasing participation in sport. We want more kids to play sport. We want more kids to take up sport at an early level, so that they are able to sort of give themselves the chance to sort of become elite athletes or pro athletes. And when we are looking at so many kids participating in sport, we have to understand that as good as it sounds, it's also going to be quite a challenge to be able to manage and sort of give them those support systems and structures in place to help them thrive in their participation, and then eventually move towards high performance, right? So that's the nature of sport. That is something that as a country we have to be really really mindful of in terms of putting support systems in place. And now talking about the failure aspect, it's very much a prevalent and one of the most common presentations that I see in my consults at Empower, where there's a constant fear of failure. There is anticipatory anxiety, which we sports psychologists call performance anxiety. There's a lot of performance pressure. There's high self-criticism that athletes are constantly battling with, which tend to have impacts in terms of developing anxiety as a disorder, developing mood disorders, or sort of battling with depressive episodes, if not depression as a clinical illness. And these dips in moods and emotions can impact not just their performance but their overall mental health. And that is where the sociable aspect of their life, where life beyond sport can also sort of start seeing the effects of sport performance, so to speak. So that's one area. The other bit which is important in terms of spotting for athletes is when they fail or when they lose a particular match, what is the support system that is available to them? Are they going to be exposed to another coach who only criticizes what their performance was not up to, or are they going to be exposed to parents who are going to again go at them with negative feedback, saying this didn't work out, you didn't do this well, you train so much and you're still not able to perform? And in that sense, that's why resilience, I understand it as much as it is an individual trait, it is also to be, for you to develop resilience, you need a very very strong social community support for athletes to build their resilience resources. Of course, constantly exposing yourself to competition and that high pressure environment can inherently help you build resilience, because one of the most enlightening things that one of my athletes said to me in one of these sessions was, I know I'm going to lose because probably I'm not prepared, but I'm okay with it because the next morning I do have a training session where I can work on my mistakes, right? And to sort of have an athlete reach that level of self-awareness or reach that level of even acceptance about their performance was really endearing to see, and then to see them go through from point A to point B. And when I further reflected on the case, we spotted that there were a lot of other agents that contributed to this resilience perception, right? They had a coach who allowed them that expression of emotions and thoughts when they had lost. They had parents who were critical, like most sport parents are, but also appreciated and sort of emphasized that they are in the sport for the long run. They are not just looking at sub junior performance, but they're looking at the child to sort of play till the seniors, then consistently play at the international level. And that made me think about that resilience, as much as is an internal trait that athletes should develop, there also have to be structures around them that help them sort of build it as a skill. And what they say about resilience, it's a muscle which contracts in good times and expands in bad times, and it is that sort of characteristic which helps you cope with the pressure. So when we initially spoke about resilience, the idea was that it's just the ability to bounce back.
Yes.
But I believe there's been a lot of research that has gone into sport resilience, high performance environments, and now we've come to an understanding that it's actually a characteristic which you actually develop, and you're exposed to adversity or pressure situations. These personal characteristics that you build will help you withstand that kind of pressure. So I believe it's one of the most crucial things that sports psychologists have to be mindful of when they're working with athletes. And it's important to sort of also keep the other agents in the athlete environment abreast of their communication and their communication skills and styles to help reinforce this resilience in athletes.
Correct. Actually, very rightly said about the self characteristics of the athlete, but also giving a lot of importance as to the environment around the athlete is also what matters so much. Because suppose if that athlete that you had a session with would have gone to telling somebody else, and somebody not understanding that, okay, man, like you lost, like how can you not feel shit about it? And like how can you say that next day morning I'm going to get up and train? Imagine having somebody tell that compared to having another person like you be like, okay, wow, that is a positive note. So I think this also becomes a very important topic to talk about, because when we conduct workshops with coaches, we work towards coach education. And I feel like coaches happen to be the first point of contact for an athlete. Especially an athlete has their parents in the house, but when they are on the field, seeing the coach on an everyday basis, I feel the coach becomes the primary parent over there. So, just if you had to say it in one sentence, or like just one word to the coaches, whoever listens to our sessions over here, what is it that they need to keep in mind when they are dealing with an athlete who is facing a mental health challenge and they are observing it? Because a lot of our sessions have coaches who really want to understand the mental aspect of it and are very determined to do that, but they are not aware how to do that. So I would like you to address in like right now very shortly as to what is that one step that a coach can take towards building resilience or being there in a positive way for their athlete.
I think if I want to give you like just one word, that word would be psychological safety.
Hmm.
Creating an environment in their academy, the motivational climate being focused on task as opposed to just winning and losing, and sort of allowing the athletes to take risks, to sort of try new things, to try out new techniques, and the opportunity to fail at when they try.
Hmm.
That would be the definition of just general psychological safety. And I believe coaches should be able to, firstly, should be trained, should be of course given the kind of exposure and the education about what psychological safety in sport looks like, why it is important, and how, as a coach, if you are psychologically informed, how can you improve your coaching practices, then becomes one of the most primary things, which is what even at Empower we are sort of gunning for. It is one of the most primary things. There's ample amount of research which tells us the kind of differences in terms of athlete outcomes, well, not just performance but mental health outcomes, when an athlete is trained and exposed to a psychologically safe environment as opposed to somebody who's probably not, or the environment for the other athlete is very result driven. So I believe psychological safety would be that one word which I would caution all coaches to be very, very mindful of.
Yes, and that one word I feel means a lot and has a lot of in-depth information to that itself. But right now we don't have the time to discuss so much about it. But I think that is something that we will need to discuss later on whenever it is possible. So, so yes, coming up to the final part of today's session, I would like you to tell us or tell all of our viewers as to what are some of the steps that we as a sporting community can help athletes, break the stigma when it comes to suicidal thoughts or ideation or harmful behavior or depressive moods, depressive episodes. How can we work towards breaking the stigma and being there for somebody who is suffering? And maybe somebody is not ready to accept that they are suffering, but maybe we can see it from the outside and just something to break that entire stigma and to start a conversation. And what are the what are the best things that we could tell athletes in that particular situation?
Right. I think one of the first most important points is, as an ecosystem in sport, when we're talking about the circles for athletes, say it's the coaches, it's the parents, it's the athlete managers, the sports science staff, it's very, very important for all of us to know the warning signs, for all of us to have general mental health awareness, which is something that we at Empower do. We run a lot of these sessions where we help the general population understand the warning signs of mental health, whether it is the basic ones that we all know, whether it's depression, anxiety, but also a little bit more in detail. It's very, very important to know the warning signs so as to spot them in athletes. And the only performance outcome cannot be that my athlete's not winning. That can't be the only sign that a coach comes up with. They have to be able to, given that kind of exposure and the education, to be able to spot these signs. The second one is to also train them on crisis interventions, right? Like you correctly said, the sport coaches definitely become the first point of contact, mainly when an athlete is in training or is traveling for national camps or is in competition and tournaments, right? So it's important for coaches to give in that education about how can you ask that question, because when I went through the suicide intervention skills training, it was quite daunting as a psychologist to be able to come to terms with asking that close-ended question, saying, are you thinking about it? Or or sort of that whole question. And it is one of the most difficult questions to ask. I'm not going to beat around the bush, but the other part is you have to be able to ask it and then have the resources to not one feel overwhelmed, and then signpost, say, the athlete or the person to the correct kind of resources. So first is training. The second is knowing that you are going to have the ability to be able to manage and provide that individual that facilitative space, that safe, confidential, non-judgmental space to talk about their emotional distress and the turmoil. And then also having a resource list or having some sort of signposting resources where they could refer them to a mental health professional or a psychologist or a psychiatrist, so on and so forth. So those would be the steps. Secondly, also knowing that when you ask a question like this, and if you feel overwhelmed, you also should be able to access mental health support. Typically when psychologists work in this space, it is also important that you give sort of some debrief counseling, right? So it's for the listener, it becomes important for them to park their emotions and their sort of experience with a psychologist, again in a safe, non-judgmental, confidential space, so that they can process that experience, and it doesn't act as a trigger for them later. So that would be the third bit, where the listener also has access to mental health resources. And generally in sport in India, there has to be more conversation that happens about this. There has to be more data that needs to come out of geographical regions. Typically, we sometimes the media reports it about completed suicide, so we're able to come to know them. But athletes who are sort of in tier 2, tier 3 cities, or athletes who are not yet national heroes yet, those cases may not get reported, which then gives us a skewed understanding and a skewed perspective of the expanse of the issue. So there has to be steps taken there. And lastly, I would also sort of want to highlight about the terminology that is used when it is reported, right? Instead of calling it a successful suicide or committed suicide, if we are able to move towards the more scientific terms, sort of as, say, a death by suicide or completed suicide, and sort of understanding the importance of the language when you are talking about it, giving appropriate trigger warnings when you're wanting to talk about it on social media, in forums, at conferences, becomes very, very important. Because we want to destigmatize it, but we also want to do it in a way which is going to be great for the greater good, and we don't want athletes to not talk about it because of the societal stigma that is attached to it. So I believe those would be the steps. And probably to end it, one of the things that made me feel quite comforted when I went through the training was there's research to tell us that when you ask the question, are you thinking about ending your life, you are not putting thoughts in their head. Asking that question actually does more good. You are not going to make them think about it actively. In fact, that would act as a conversation opener. So that made me feel quite comfortable, because it's the societal perception that we have, that if I ask them, that I'm putting it in their head, and then what if they go and act on it or sort of ideate about it, or there's certain self-harm behavior. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. And there are several resources that are available on the internet, that are available on the International Olympic Committee Society. Empower has a suicide prevention kit as well, where we've sort of taken our efforts to talk about it and give the Indian sort of data point and understanding. So I would encourage all of you to just, sort of be mindful, be aware, because that is going to help us, alleviate the stigma that is attached to it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, these were great takeaways. Firstly, even the listener might get overwhelmed, so they need to get the support. Second is the power of language that you said as to committed suicide rather than, like to say death by suicide rather than committed suicide. And the third one is asking the question. I think that's the most challenging one for all of us to even do. And but as you said, it is one of the best things that you could do, and that is something that's definitely going to help the player or an individual, not even an athlete, but an individual to maybe start addressing the issue. So, yes, we are open to any sort of questions right now that whoever's watching this live want to ask. We are very open to address it. So, you all can just type in your questions in the comment section, and we'll definitely look towards addressing it. Uh, we already have one question here. It says, um, what can be causes of suicide in elite sport? Can be many reasons, but specifically, what are the most reported causes?
I think the elite population generally, especially in the elite sport environment, like we have spoken about, it's the scrutiny, it's the equation of medal, the color of the medal with self worth. So that level of criticism, scrutiny, is probably one of the reasons. Also, if the athlete has certain physical conditions or mental illnesses, the comorbidity of it all can also result into things, in say the suicidal behavior or the suicidal ideation stage. Lastly, also the bit about media scrutiny that we spoke about, whether exposed to constant criticism, that can act up in terms of self-image issues and self-worth issues, can also lead athletes to sort of think about suicide. I think Michael Phelps was an elite athlete who had spoken very very openly about post Olympic depressive blues, where he had spoken about how difficult it was for him, despite being one of the most decorated Olympian that we all have ever seen. He still faced that clinical depression, and he had thought about ending his own life. So sort of addressing the fact that competition at the elite level is very very cutthroat. It is a very highly pressure laden environment, which most of us probably may not be able to even think about,
Right.
to emotionally empathize with those athletes. So maybe those would be some of the causes or warning signs.
Yes, yes, definitely. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And if there are any more questions, uh, you can put it up. I don't think anyone has commented earlier. I'm just checking. Yeah. All right. All right. So, thank you so much, Sanika, for coming in here today and sharing with us your valuable inputs. They were they're going to be extremely instrumental in our way forward in the sporting community in the Indian context, and you have thrown a lot of light on athletes, individuals in social and sporting life. So, thanks a lot for coming in on board to discuss this sensitive topic that that we had a conversation about today. And I'm sure a lot of you who will be watching this in the future are going to benefit from it too. So, so yes, until next time, we will see you soon.
Thank you,
Yes.
Sarah. Thank you to the team at Simply Sport as well to take up these difficult conversations. While you're doing a fab job. So well done to you and your entire team. And thank you so much for having me here.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much, Anika.